Hi, welcome. My name is Dustin Miles. I'm with Momentum Multifamily. I'm excited to have Dusten Hendrickson here today. I've known each other for a few years. I think we actually met in person in 2021, I think. Yeah, appreciate you being here, Dustin. And yeah, I'd love for folks just to learn more about you, and if you would mind kind of giving a little bit of background on you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Dustin. I appreciate you having me here. You got a very cool first name, that's for sure. Uh, my background is I've been developing for 20 plus years, 500 million roughly in assets that we've developed, purchased. I started out developing duplexes or twin homes, just two
Hmm.
units. And we did that for quite a while, and we started buying more and more land and doing fix and flips. And we basically did everything from we only thing we didn't really do is industrial, but we did retail, commercial, historical, uh, adaptive reuse, mixed use. We did starter homes, the whole development of starter homes. Actually, we did
Wow.
custom homes. And at one point, I just realized like this growth isn't working. I'm
Yeah.
growing and it's complete flatline. I was doing the most work I've ever done, most stressful, and it was just complete flatline. And I didn't realize that growth and scale to actually grow at good, you need to have scale. And so I went to a multifamily conference event, a Jake and Gino event in 2018. And
Hmm.
that's when I learned that syndication, I learned about syndication, and then I applied all those same the metrics that they go after. I applied them to all my stuff, and I realized I had to sell most of the stuff and I had to concentrate on larger properties because I did have a 30 unit at that time. That was my biggest, was a 30 unit, and
Hmm.
I didn't really understand how to go bigger than that because was running out of money, you know.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, but that was clearly the best project that I did. It wasn't even close, and it was
Wow.
as much work as a regular single family home, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah.
And and plus with a lot less impact or a lot more impact on the 30 unit. A lot more people liked it, talked about it. I was housing a lot more people. There was cool commercial businesses on the bottom. And
Hmm.
so that's when I kind of realized like, hey, I got to do more units in one spot. And syndication, taking that syndication route is kind of what helped me. Then I realized I didn't really like to buy stuff as much because I was able to develop. And since I that barrier to entry wasn't there for me, I could develop. I realized I could create a lot more value by developing than just purchasing and fixing and flipping.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I guess kind of diving into the developing and all that. I know we've talked some, and then so I know you're big on affordability, and I know you're big on design and being green, and would love to just kind of learn I guess what's the driver behind affordability for you and your thought process there.
Driver behind affordability for me is almost a natural driver.
Hmm.
My mother taught me about just how to design units, and she would strip everything out, including even closets,
Oh
which
wow.
I realized that that was going a little too far with the efficiency, and people loved closets, and it was worth the
Yeah.
square footage to put in closets. Uh, so I learned from her, and then I learned through some custom home building kind of what people liked. And for most part, people liked really good flow, really good design, and efficient design.
Yeah.
Uh, and you could do like a 1,500 square foot 3 bedroom. If you designed it perfectly, it would feel very similar to a poorly designed 2,000 square foot 3 bedroom. So
Hmm.
I realized that you could have the same impact with a lot less square footage, and you could put your money into different areas and make a lot bigger impact. And so really started focusing on huge windows, lots of natural light, lighter palettes. Um, what people like, nice bathrooms. People always like nice bathrooms. They
Yep.
like kitchens. They like big islands. So we incorporated all that kind of stuff into our apartments, and we tried to get them down to the most efficient possible square footage. And we did green building for a long time. We started a green building company in our area before anyone else really was into it. That was about
Oh wow.
2011.
Wow. Yeah.
At that time, we had to look for green options, right? But all those green options are are just built into the industry. You don't really have to look for the green stuff. It's all kind of
Hmm.
green now. And
Yep.
so, and also there's the greenwashing thing where when you look into it and you study it, you realize, hey, they say it's green, but then these other group of people say it's not green. So like spray foam. Some people say, well, spray foam is green because it saves a ton of money. And other people say, well, spray foam's not green because it off gases and it's made of chemicals and this and that.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay. So we realized we just strategically use the spray foam in the minimal amount of spots, and then we use the cellulose in the walls because the R factor is very similar
Hmm.
in walls, but if you're recycling material and you're using stuff that's healthy for environments. So we would kind of pair those two together. But what it came down, we learn all those tricks. Then what it comes down to is efficient design is always green. So
Yeah.
taking an elevator out of a 3-story building is way more green because you don't have all the maintenance, you don't have all the materials, you don't have the wasted square
Right.
footage. And so that's extremely green because we don't have to bring in all that material. We don't have to mine that material, create that elevator. We also
Hmm.
realized taking out a corridor hallway is always green because now we for 50 to 100 years the life cycle of this building, we don't have to heat or maintain or vacuum or pay taxes or insurance on that hallway corridor square footage.
Hmm.
And so I really realized that no matter you can't ever argue that efficient design is not green. It's inherently the most green thing that you can do because we're not using any product and we're not using any utilities to heat that and we're not using any maintenance man hours to repair any of that stuff. It's just non-existent. So
Right.
extremely green to cut things. And so that's what I did. We put large windows in all of our units, and so
Oh, cool.
floods the space with natural light. We use a
Yeah.
pallet, so it feels bigger than it really is, and we're able to produce a 600 square foot one bedroom that feels just as good as a standard 750 square foot one bedroom. And in fact, people tend to prefer it because it has all the little touches that you need, like quartz tops and black
Hmm.
hardware, raw wood floors, washer dryer, really nice bathrooms. We have windows in our bathrooms and our closets. We have floor to ceiling glass. So we do all
Wow.
these kind of things, and we focus on on quiet living as well. So
Hmm.
we use sound channel and insulation and gypcrete and sound mat. We have corridor. Our corridor separates our units, our stairwell. I mean, so you have very few walls connecting your units, so
Oh,
you have less people living, or like you have less people side by side.
touch points. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. That's cool. I was, so you said you guys do natural wood flooring. How does that hold up? And I know
Well,
we,
it's actually not natural wood. It's still
okay.
LVP, but it looks just like natural wood, and so
Oh, okay.
gives the feel of natural wood. And it's also a green product. It's we source. We don't just use the cheapest Chinese grade flooring. We use some. It has a green stamp of approval, but
Oh, okay.
it's more design bit. Like the color is a specific color that I found that is the warmest, most natural, fairly modern color. And
Gotcha.
it looks real. It looks realistic. So people
Awesome.
think it's real wood floors. And they hold
Yeah.
up fantastically. Plus, you can just peel up a plank and put a new one back down. I mean,
Yep.
most everyone uses the LVP, but we use a certain brand that doesn't chip up quite as bad, and so it looks good for a long time.
Okay. Awesome. That's cool. And where are you developing right now? Or I guess kind of backing up a little bit. Where do you live, and then where are you developing, and what does that look
I
like?
live in Brookings, South Dakota, which is
Okay.
it's on the eastern side of South Dakota. We primarily develop in eastern South Dakota. We
Hmm.
are we've got this workforce housing plan now that we finally honed in on.
Hmm.
That's extremely affordable. And then so now we're expanding to Rochester, Minnesota, Des Moines, Iowa, Columbus, Ohio, Madison, Wisconsin, um, Kansas City, and Lincoln, Nebraska. That's kind of our initial
Wow.
footprint. And then once
Wow.
we have those markets, then we can spread out from those markets, and then we can go national once we've learned how to scale so
Hmm.
that we produce 500 to 1,000 units a year. We have a pipeline of about 2,000 units for 2026. And we're learning how to now when we learn how to scale out regional, once we get that everything dialed in there, then we're gonna scale out nationally. It's because
Oh,
this
cool.
product is essentially needed everywhere. Like
Yeah.
any place that has growth, we can we can easily justify putting these units in because they're, I mean, brand new units. Everyone wants to live in brand new stuff.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Awesome. And what the units you're developing and all that, what, do you have a sweet spot for the number of units, and do you
Yeah.
kind of have a sweet spot for the area of Kansas City or Des Moines and all
Yep.
that? Okay.
So when we go to towns, we try to target the one of the nicest areas in the town where the
Oh,
growth is going, where there is really good infrastructure, or we try to do infill because our
mm,
product, we can do infill because we use 12 to 26 unit buildings. So they're
okay.
very boutique, they're very small, and they're 3-story, but they're flat roofs. So if you go into a story and a half neighborhood, our roofs do not overpower the roofs even in a nicer neighborhood.
Hmm.
So we can put these almost anywhere and they don't overpower the neighborhood.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
they're very trendy, so they're very attractive, so people don't get so upset that apartments are coming into their neighborhood. So we can do some infill.
Okay.
And then we label it workforce housing because if you say affordable housing, people get a little bit worked up. So
Oh,
we
for sure.
we
Yeah.
talk about solving the affordable housing crisis, but we say our product is workforce housing because it technically is. It's little a affordable, meaning it's just affordable for anyone that has a decent job. Where these are the units, instead of going and buying a starter house now, you come and rent our unit to figure out, what you want to do because buying a starter home is super hard.
Yeah, it's getting really difficult. I don't know what housing is in your area, but starter house in DFW, decent part of town, it's at least three something.
Ours is
Um,
about 350, just because
oh wow.
do a little. It's kind of cold here, so you got to do a little bit higher quality foundations and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's about 350.
Yeah. Ours is you might be able to find something low threes, but it's probably, 350, 4, depends on the neighborhood and the schools and all that. So it's crazy. So
Honestly, that 350 doesn't get you much either. That's about 1,000 to 1,200 square feet with a two-stall garage and a 4,000.
wow. Wow.
Very
Okay.
small.
Wow. Yeah, ours I'd have to go look, but my guess brand new, probably 12, 1,400 square feet, kind of in that range. So, wow. Yeah, are with your apartments, do you do 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, or what does your unit mix
We
typically
do
look
we
like?
do studios through 3 bedrooms. We
Okay.
primarily focus on one bedroom and studios. We have over 50% one bedrooms and studios because we're finding when you go and pull reports, it's by far the most underrepresented segment in apartments because for so long most people have been developing 2 bedrooms. Even now, you go and look,
Mhm.
the majority amount of apartments are always 2 bedrooms. We're
Yeah.
finding though that people want to live by themselves.
Mm.
So a 2 bedroom is just a few $100 more in rent, maybe another $100 in utilities, and it's just space that they don't necessarily need if they're living alone. So we've just found that the one or the 1 bedroom and studio are by far the most popular. They rent the fastest. Our 2 bedrooms actually take the longest to rent usually, and our 3 bedrooms rent pretty quickly. But we only have a
Mm.
handful of 3 bedrooms, so our
Gotcha.
we maybe
Okay.
have 10% of 3 bedrooms, if even, but 10 to 5% 3 bedrooms,
Hmm.
50% 1 bedrooms, and then maybe 20% two, and 20% or 10 or 15% studio, and then 25% 2 bedrooms. Kind
Okay.
of kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Uh, it's interesting to me because you know, it. So I've been, in the apartment business for a little bit, and I remember for so long, just like a lot of people, I was doing value add, and it's funny because you say your apartments are flat roof, and so in my head, that's a little triggering because I try to. especially when I was starting out and I was doing older, older assets and I was doing value add, I would try to stay away from flat roofs.
Yeah.
So anyways, but so I just thought that was interesting.
Well, I can, if you want me, I can give you a caveat to that. So
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
say yes, I understand we stay away from flat roofs on value adds too, but we
yep.
do put a small slope in them. So you're talking about a minimal
Oh,
slope, but
gotcha.
there's still
Yeah.
rubber. And so if since the insurance has changed so drastically, rubber roof
Mhm.
is actually much more valuable to us because we never have to worry about storm damage. Because now almost
Wow.
all storm damage you have to cover on your deductible.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
damage that comes through, all exterior damage, you're not going to get paid for that because you've got like 1% to 1 to 2% deductibles now. So because of that, we've we're going more towards the flat roof because they're fully adhered rubber. And they do have a little slope, so we don't have the
Yeah,
same issue. Plus, there's no parapets. But yeah, I do understand what you're saying. They're not 100% flat, but they appear to be
yeah.
flat with a
Gotcha.
very low slope.
Okay. Yeah, I know just your I think your background you were in roofing at one point, so I'm not that's not me at all, but I just remember yeah, I did have one deal. It was flat, but it helped it made all the difference in the world having that slight just tilt just so you don't have, water sitting and stuff like
I mean,
that.
that's a
So,
great thing to point out because a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing you're thinking.
yeah. Yep, yep. Got it. That's cool. And so and how many units do you typically build at a time, or have you
Oh,
kind of found a sweet spot there?
okay, so we like just like everyone else, scale is at about 150, right? So we
Okay.
try to build our developments to 150, but what we do is we have a phased approach. And we will, so right now we're currently working on a 500 unit, but we've
Oh
broken
wow.
it into four phases. So first phase is 100 units, second phase is 125, third phase is 125, fourth phase is 150. Um,
Wow.
and it just worked out like that because we split the parcels up, and it makes it much easier when when you can parcel everything out because now we can get different financing for each one, and we can raise just this much money. So we don't have to raise the full 30 million
Right.
in equity. We can raise
Yeah.
6 million at a time, and we can get financing at 10 to 15 million a clip, which is way easier for banks. So
Mm.
we got more competitive financial terms. Then when we can get it all said and done, when it's stabilized, now we can have big institutional money come in. We can have a much larger loan port. Like if someone wants to take the whole loan down, we can do that. Otherwise, we can split it up and refinance in individual stages as well. Or we can
Yeah.
sell it individually. I don't think it will sell individually. It could, but I
Right.
think someone would want the whole thing. And so that makes it easier. But we also do a phased approach within. So we have one building is on this project is 25 units. So we'll do one building in 9 to 10 months. We will lease that. We'll get our OC. That will be start leasing. We move the construction zone, the fence down, and we fence off the rest of it. And we bring people in immediately. And
Oh
so we
wow.
see this very often. People say they do this, but I don't see anyone actually doing it.
Hmm.
So we lease those first units up. We move to the second building. We get the OC on the second building. We move the fence down. Almost all the units in the first building are either occupied or pre-leased. Boom,
Wow.
move another building in. Plus, it's
Right.
easier for us to lease the second building now because you can go and show them units in the first building. Be like, hey,
Right.
here's the actual units. Check it out. A lot of times when you get done and you get your OC, that's when you can do your real showings. So
Yeah.
so we've
Yeah.
got a phased approach within a phased approach, and this helps us to have usually we're fully occupied within 2 to 3 months of our last
Wow.
building being complete.
Wow. Yeah, that's I like that a lot because a lot of people too, especially if people already see other people living there, then like, okay, this place is, it kind of gives you, it
Yeah.
helps to sell a little bit because no one, I don't know, a lot of people aren't going to want to be the first person to move into a otherwise vacant complex. So, no, that's cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. In you guys you're going out to so you're expanding to Kansas City, Des Moines, and there were some other cities in there. Why why kind of those? Is it because, proximity to you guys or to where you're at, or what was the thought process
It's
there?
proximity to us, and
Hmm.
we think that the upper Midwest is the most
Hmm.
stable place, and there is more growth there. So
Yeah.
it's like the Northeast is actually very stable right now, but
Right.
it's hard to grow into those markets.
Yeah.
Very little actual growth going on. And then the Sun Belt is completely saturated right now.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much competition in the Sun Belt, and there's so many people developing in the Sun Belt. We would rather stay in the upper Midwest. And I like the mindset of the people closer to the center of the country. We found
Mm.
that we have less concessions, we have less bad debt. Um,
Mm.
something about it. And
Wow.
the only thing holding people back is the weather. But I know that there's a lot of people that don't want to live where it's 100 degrees in the summer. So,
Right. Yeah.
and it's a little easier to live. If you go and you look at statistics, it's
Yeah.
easier to live in the middle of the country. It's not as stressful. And so
Yeah.
there is a little bit of draw there. And the infrastructure is also brand new. So
Right.
it's all like brand new infrastructure because these towns are not that old. They're like
Right.
East Coast towns are super old.
Right.
Middle
Right.
of the country, it's new, and you can see it in Dallas. Like in Dallas, the growth is, or Houston or Austin, all those towns. The growth is there's huge growth,
Yep.
but then there's also huge competition. And Dallas is one of those places that if you look
Yeah.
at developing there, it's pretty saturated. So
Right. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I
just
mean,
one of the things. There's lots of competition. So we're going into a little less competitive markets, and it's a little more stable. I've done a lot of stuff down in the southeast, and it's it goes up fast, but then it also comes down fast. And it's
right.
hard to build a portfolio with the ups and downs. If you could just get stable growth, it's a little bit easier. Long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why the Midwest has kind of been leading the charge in terms of rent growth and all that over the past few years, where it's been everything at least in Texas has been flat, or Austin's especially negative. And to your point about there wasn't this huge run up in supply, which is what we saw, or we've seen in Texas. So yeah, the supply's kind of fallen off. And then for you, I don't know how much you talk to private equity and family offices and all that, but at least I've kind of heard from talking to different people, those folks are starting to get a little more interested in putting dollars into development and all that too. So I'm sure that's good
Yes.
music to your ears. So
Yep.
um well, awesome. And then do you I don't know, depends on the area. Are you able to comment on just, kind of, what it costs to build per door or anything like that? Or does it really
Yeah.
depend on the area or
Yep. It does depend on the area. But we are finding that fairly competitive we can be fairly competitive with our construction costs. It doesn't
Mhm.
move that much. Now,
Oh,
when
cool.
we go to the bluer areas, like when we go to Rochester, Minnesota, it's more blue. They do
Right.
have more rules and they have higher fees for their utility. They have a lot more government control and
Right.
they do restrict growth. So
Hmm.
maybe because there's so much growth in these areas where they've always been able to restrict growth and charge more for the growth.
Yep.
But we find that there's a direct correlation. The rents are higher there because the government charges so much money, you have to get higher rents. So
Yep.
the rents in Rochester are probably 40% higher than the rents in Sioux Falls.
Holy cow.
And
Wow.
it's because it's a lot more barrier to entry. It's harder to get in there.
Wow.
They have a lot of fees that just go directly to the government, and
Wow.
the government's not very efficient. So that's what happens. So Rochester, we're going to probably be maybe 20 to 30,000 more per unit.
Wow.
But we're
Jeez.
building in Eastern South Dakota. We're building at about 130
Oof.
construction costs per unit.
Yeah.
All units about
Great.
160. But you got to remember, we are also building one bedrooms and studios. If we built all two bedrooms
Sure.
it'd be a little bit higher. Uh,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
but we
But
find that pushing by putting in more one bedrooms and studios and pushing down your overall unit cost is more profitable because we get the most rent per square foot from a studio. So
yeah. But that gives you a good spread. I don't know exactly, what rent you charge and all that, but I assume that gives you a pretty big spread from what, you were mentioning, what it costs to buy a house versus
yeah,
renting. I mean, that should be a huge spread for you guys.
well, it's a nice spread, and um, I also have found from developing for 20 years that it's very hard to build and sell in the environment you're building and selling into
Yeah.
unless you're building into a boom time. But I found that those boom times only last for like a year. Like the
Hmm.
like you got to go through 5 years where you just cash flow, and then you'll get that 1 or 2 really good years that you sell in. And so
Right.
that's what I've seen since 2003 we've been developing, and that's what I've seen. Like
Hmm.
2003, so 2006 was an amazing year to sell into, right? Then you have
Yep.
to go a few more years, then you can sell in somewhere in 2012-ish. It was good. 2021 was phenomenal to sell in.
Yep.
So you just get these very small windows where you can sell. So I believe you should have a plan that your deal cash flows first and foremost, and
Yep.
then you can choose when you're going to sell, and then you'll get a
Yeah.
much better spread. You don't have to quite worry about what's it going to sell for today because we're not planning on selling it today. We're planning on selling it whenever the timing is the best.
Right.
That's one reason why I like the Midwest because the cash flow is better. I find
Yeah.
that cash flow is a little bit better. So Kansas City cash flow is higher, might be harder to sell, but if you can just hold on and sell in the best market, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because it's I did my first deal in 2014, and that was, kind of 2012 to 2019, and then, took a little time off for COVID and then boomed town in, 21. And I think a lot of investors, at least kind of in the circles that I'm in, everybody was used to, hey, I put money in, and 2 to 3 years later, I'm doubled, doubles my money, and that's not sustainable. That's not just in terms of, I mean, that's flipping. That's not
Yeah,
investing.
right.
And so I think, folks really need to change their, mindset. This is, just like if, most people that are buying stocks or, however you view that, or just, a lot of these investments. I mean, these are longer term. This is not, get rich quick scheme. Although people did make a lot of money, unfortunately, some people are losing money, right now too. So, um, anyways, but yeah, I think just kind of investing. I mean, like you guys are putting a lot of effort, a lot of time in, a lot of, thought. I don't know how much you're doing on the front end with, talking to city council people and kind of local community leaders and all, but you're putting a lot of time in, and it just doesn't make sense to, try to put that time in, make a quick buck and get out. Like that just doesn't mesh well. So.
Yeah, I think that people were extremely spoiled from '09 or 10 until 2021. When I look
Mhm.
back on that time, I think that's the best time ever historically for real estate
Yeah.
investment because you had a cataclysmic depression strictly on single family and apartments. Like you could go, there was time people selling apartments for 10 and 20,000 a unit, and I bought a
Yeah.
few, be it they were
Yeah.
small because I didn't really understand how to buy the bigger stuff then. It was smaller stuff, but that is just it's so cheap, so much lower than replacement cost even would have been. And then now you're looking at replacement cost of 200,000 a unit on average minimum. So
Yeah. Yeah.
10x increase
Yep.
over 10 years is insane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just not really going to happen. And I just think that it's rare. There's a whole bunch of things came together to make that time special.
Yep.
But when you start now seeing like, oh, okay, now you got to take your losses in on now you got to take your losses that were occurring over the last couple of years, it doesn't make those times look near as good. Like
Right.
when you average it out. So just like stocks, right? You're making a bunch of money and then you're losing a bunch of money if you're selling anything. If you hold, you never really lose money.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Uh kind of going back to my comment earlier, before you kind of enter a market, are you,
Mm.
are you talking with,
Yes.
city
So we,
officials? What does that look
yep.
like?
Um, well, when we first were doing the plan, we talked a lot more, but now once we just say, hey, we've got this city,
Mhm.
this city, this city, this city, uh, we've got like so much material, so many brochures and pamphlets. We can just be like, here's what we do. They look at it, they see the attractiveness of the building, they see the
Mhm.
rent pricing, and they're like, yeah, bring this to our town. We need it. So it
Cool.
used to be a lot harder sell,
Yeah.
but affordable housing is usually
Mhm.
the top three issue on every city council's agenda. And it usually has something to do with um, employment, and then affordable housing, and then it's usually something else. Everybody has like a third thing that's not really, there's no
Right.
correlation, but almost everyone has, it has to do with where can we find more employees or employment. We need more affordable housing, and then one other issue. And those are usually, there's usually affordable housing's always in the top three.
Yeah.
Usually the number one issue,
Yep.
most cities.
Yep.
And so when we bring in this plan, it's actually an easy sell. But yeah, you always are talking with local officials, and if you don't talk, maybe you don't have to talk with the local officials. You just talk with a local GC, and they already have the contacts with the local officials. But yes, there's always that talk going on, or else economic development councils, we talk to them. Um, but it's actually pretty easy to get people on board with this new plan that we've created. And then it also puts pressure on, I mean, value add guys don't like to hear this, but when we come into a market, puts pressure down on their product. So it's not really worth flipping their product as much. But people are also learning that putting, flipping these, trying to flip these value adds is not as lucrative as it once was. People have kind of found out that they're not going to pay that much rent, additional rent for paint and carpet. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you got to find value other ways.
Yeah, it was a lot of people, I mean, including myself, and it sounds like, probably you as well. I mean, when I started buying, we were buying it, 9 and a 10 cap, and then, selling it at 6 or 7. And, so you do that, kind of following the cap rate compression trail down. And so you make really good money. The problem is it started going the other way. So, but yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and so switching gears, a little bit here. Just kind of, you have 2,000 units in the pipeline, which, sounds great, and awesome. Just kind of curious, what does your plan look like for the next few years? And, you kind of, hinted on it, going regional and then kind of going, national from there, but would love to just kind of touch on that a little bit more.
Well, our main plan is that we're in the process of starting a fund. So
Hmm.
we're in the process of moving away from retail investors and into more institutional investors because we spend too much time raising money. Raising retail money is a full-time job and full-time for multiple people if you need more and more equity. And as
Yep.
people know, it's harder and harder and harder to raise money for projects with every passing month. It feels like over the past year to two, even we used to be able to send out an email and you'd get a bunch of interest and you would bring those people into your deal and you were doing more reactive raising. Now it's
Hmm.
lots of proactive raising, nurturing, influential marketing, relationship marketing. It's a lot of people are finding out that the digital ads and social media stuff ain't working anymore. So it's
Hmm.
now it's back to cold calling and to actually calling people and keeping in touch, and that takes a lot of time. And
Yeah.
people are scared of tariffs, they're scared of all, I mean, it goes with the news cycle, right? When it feels like when there's a Democrat in office, the news cycle is always better, and
Mm.
just because they don't talk about bad stuff as much. And then when Republican comes into office, it feels like the news cycle gets more negative, and then people do get scared. I think people are very, very swayed by the media, and that's why it just is making it harder and harder to raise. Also,
Mm.
there's just less free cash floating around, but
Yeah.
institutional investors, they see the fear more as opportunity, and so that's now all of a sudden you're seeing all these institutional investors that are interested, and they also want to see something different. So
Yeah.
when the same thing was working over and over, they wanted to see a plan that was the same as everyone else, but now they want to see something different. So you got to differentiate yourself because they want to see what's the new idea, because all those old ideas that were working, they're not working, so you can't just do the same thing that we used to. So there's been a lot of change recently, but our plan is to go into multiple cities and develop 500 to 1,000 unit pipelines per year in each location, plus then expand out to any tertiary markets that are around these. But we love the tertiary markets. We love the Midwestern markets. We find we can make better cash flow in these markets. And we feel like real estate is a long-term game, and we don't necessarily want to time the market as much. And we want to build in very desirable locations where there's strong rent growth and there's strong desirability for these units. And then we don't have to worry about selling them. So
Mm.
I think people got a little bit bamboozled into what real estate was over the past decade. And now
Yep.
they're waking up to realize it's all about cash flow.
Right.
And then take the cash flow and then sell when it's best to sell. So when you're investing in real estate, it's not a 3 year deal, it's a 5 to 10 year deal. And
Hmm.
within that 5 to 10 year period, there's going to be a really good time to sell. We like to sell within 10 years because the product starts getting a little dated by then. It's a little
Yep.
bit worn down, but it's still brand new for anybody buying assets. And as you know, a 10-year old asset is really marketable when you're raising money for an acquisition. So
Yep.
that's our plan, and to go into all these cities, um, we want to do multiple $100 million funds. We want to raise $1 billion for this thing. We want to solve the goal is to solve affordable housing, and so we want to bring this plan everywhere. We know that people are going to actually start copying it because people already have been copying it, or
Mm.
they're starting to copy it. There's a few people that have copied it, but we know that it's going to catch on and people are going to start copying it. But we also know we can't be everywhere, and the goal after the Midwest is to spread nationwide and just partner with people that have land and GCs that want to get into owning apartments, that want to partner with us for that kind of stuff. That's our plan, and we just want to place these buildings all over the nation because that's kind of, I think, what God put me here to do is to help people live in better places that improve their mindset, improve their wellness, and this is the new starter home. So that's basically, I mean, I was in the business for a long time, and I always was walking into houses thinking, how can all these people afford this?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
not everyone makes this kind of money. How do people afford these houses? And now
Yeah.
it's coming to, well, they can't actually afford these houses. So let's give them something they can afford so that they can actually live in some place that's safe and desirable. And then they can figure out what they want to do and how they want to save up and move on to the next step. So that's kind of what we're doing. We want to change the narrative of starter home into
Yeah.
it's kind of a starter home.
Awesome. That's great. I'll just kind of final question and all that, but is there, I don't know if if you're much of a reader or listen to podcast, or if you have kind of a quote that's impacted you or something that you just really enjoy.
A quote. If you're a young man, get a dog and walk it. That's a quote someone said. What would you change? Well, if I was a young man, I'd get a dog and I'd walk it.
That's
Um,
funny.
so yeah, if
Cool.
you're struggling with the ladies, go get a dog and walk that dog around. But that's just more of a joke, but it actually is true. Uh, the book that I always recommend is actually Meditations of Marcus Aurelius,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
it shows you that humans are always the same and always have been. I mean, the Bible is as well, but the Bible is a lot harder for people to read. So I always
Yep.
recommend the Bible, but an easier book to digest is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, because you can see he was a king and he's dealing with the exact, or was he a king or he was a ruler? I
Yep.
think king,
Yep.
but he was a ruler in ancient Roman times, and he was supposedly one of the best rulers of all time. And he was a stoic, and he practiced stoicism, and he was like maybe one of the first stoics, and he wrote down all his thoughts, and you can see that he dealt with the exact same problems that we all deal with now.
Yep.
And I would also say communication. uh, People don't really know how to communicate, and it's so nuanced. And if you can get people to say yes, if you can become a good enough communicator to get everybody to say yes, you'll always be able to push your plans forward.
Yep.
So
Yep. Awesome. It's funny you mentioned that Stoic and Marcus Aurelius and all that. I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday, his books, and he kind of refers back to the Stoics, and he mentions those guys, quite often. But anyway, so well, cool. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, get in touch with you, potentially invest with you? How do they get hold of you?
Dusten Hendrickson, Dustin with an E on LinkedIn. So I'm the only Dustin with an E. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can get to know me there. Otherwise, that LinkedIn gets pretty flooded, but mailboxmoneyre.com. Mailboxmoneyre is in real estate.com. That's my website, and it has all the information to get a hold of me. As our has a Calendly link. It has all the stuff. You can see our projects and what we've done. Uh, and then I like to mentor people too. So people just that's actually the easiest if you really want mentorship. Just say, hey, I got some questions for you. I'm a young or even old person starting to get into real estate. Can you help me? I really like helping people because, as Zig Ziglar says, the best way to get what you want is to help people get what they want.
Awesome. Well, sounds good. Appreciate your time, as always, and good chatting with you. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. See you,
Likewise,
Dustin. Take care.
likewise. Thanks for having me, Dustin.